Welcome to Amazing Dinosaurs. I'm Dave, and this is a collection of over 20 Amber and Hammond collection dinosaur figures from Jurassic World. There are a ton of different dinosaur species in here, and we're going to be checking them out from biggest to smallest. The first and biggest dinosaur in this entire collection is this Hammond collection, Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's got an amazingly detailed body with the coloring as well as the texturing all over. It's got some amazing marbled eyes and a pretty realistic mouth too. And we're gonna set that right here as the biggest dinosaur. Next up, also from the Hammond collection, is the Cretaceous dinosaur. Also stands on two legs and has some pretty cool yellow coloring with the gray striping and a red crown on the top of its head. And here it goes, next in size. Next up in the collection is the Hammond collection Metriacanthosaurus figure. It has tan coloring with the brown striping and some dark orange along its eyes and at the front of its face too. Now let's go ahead and set that up next in size. Here is the Hammond collection Parasaurolophus figure. It is also mostly tan colored, but it's got some purple striping and orange right along the top, and of course the huge horn on the top of its head. So now let's put this one also in line and grab our next one, which I think is the Ceratosaurus from the Hammond collection. This dinosaur is colored pretty classically for this species. It's got the tan body with the brown striping and then the red along the back, all the way up to the face. Now let's put that in line as the next largest one, and let's grab our first Amber collection figure, which is a Velociraptor figure. I believe this is the generic Velociraptor from the Amber collection, so it doesn't have a name, but it has some pretty cool coloring with the bright orange and the brown striping. So now let's go ahead and put this one in line, and let's grab our next Amber collection Velociraptor, and this one does have a name. This one is Velociraptor Charlie. This figure also has some pretty bright coloring. This one is bright green instead, and a little more faded green striping along the top. And it looks like it actually has a headpiece. I think that might be a camera, just like in the movies. So now let's get this one next in line, next to the orange Velociraptor. And here is the next Velociraptor from the Amber collection. This is Velociraptor Delta. And the coloring on this figure is a bit different than the two that we've already seen. These two ones are more like stripes on its back, but this one has more of like speckles on its back. It does have some striping as well. But this is a really cool blue-green color. So now let's put this Velociraptor in line and grab the next Amber collection Velociraptor, which is this one. And this is Velociraptor Echo. This Velociraptor has probably the most classic coloring out of any of these other Velociraptors, with the brown on the sides and then the black along the top. So now let's put this Velociraptor in line and let's check out the next and one of the coolest Velociraptors. This, of course, is Velociraptor Blue. It has the iconic stripe running down from its tail all the way up to the top of its head, and it has some glowing gold eyes. Now let's set this up in line and grab our next figure, which is actually not a dinosaur, but a human. This is the Amber collection Owen Grady figure. Looks like he's wearing the dark brown vest, blue shirt, and has a pair of jeans on. So now let's put this, very fittingly, right next to Velociraptor Blue. Next, why don't we open up a brand new one? This is the Amber collection John Raymond Arnold figure. And check that out, it looks like it even comes with the torn off arm as well. Let's open it up. First off, here is the John Arnold figure in his lab coat. You can see a Jurassic Park logo right on his shirt, and it looks like it actually comes with a computer set for this figure. So let's check that out. Check that out. This is all one piece, and this is the computer that he was working on in the movie. Looks like there's also a headpiece that you can have for him to put on his head, just like that. And there's an extra pair of hands, and the weirdest part, the coolest part, is this torn off arm right here. Let's check that out. Now it looks like you can't obviously put it back on the figure because it already has two arms, so it's a separate piece. But that's pretty cool. It's a funny little addition to this set. Now let's go ahead and set him up next in line, and let's grab our next Amber collection figure, which is this Dennis Nedry figurine from the first Jurassic World movie. He's wearing a blue lab coat. It's got a blue sweater underneath and the brown pants. So now let's go ahead and set him next in line here. And next up is the famous John Hammond from the Amber collection. And you can see that he's got his classic cane with the mosquito right on the top of it too. Now let's go ahead and set them up in line, and I had to sit these down because sadly they won't stand up on their own on this grass here. But let's grab our next dinosaur, which is this scary looking dinosaur. This is the Hammond Collection Irritator Dinosaur. It's got some really cool yellow striping, and the rest of its body is a brown color, and it's got this dark black color along its face and a bright red crown on the top of its head. And we're gonna go ahead and put that next in line, right next to John Hammond. Next, we're gonna go with the Hammond Collection Spinosaurus. But wait, this isn't actually a Spinosaurus figure. This actually used to be a Hammond Collection Baryonyx. You can see that the spine is actually custom made and put onto the figure, and the rest of the figure was repainted to look like a Spinosaurus. So we're gonna put this one next in line here. And here we go. Here is the Hammond Collection Baryonyx, the normal figure. Over here is the Spinosaurus that was remade from it, and this is the original version. It's got the dark blue coloring with the gray and the white striping, and a little bit of reflective blue coloring right underneath its eye. So now let's go ahead and set this up next in line here. For the next figure, we've got the Hammond Collection Concavinator figure. This has some really amazing coloring with the dark blue along most of its body and the orange on its tail and a little bit of red on its face. And now, since we're running out of room on this end of the table, we'll start a new line in the front right here for the next biggest dinosaur. Coming right up is the Hammond Collection Triceratops figure. This is pretty classic coloring. You can see that it's mostly brown. It has different shades of brown on different parts of its body. And a really cool part that I like is that it shows a lot of wear and tear on its horns, which I think gives a lot of detail to it. So we're gonna put that next in line, right next to the Concavinator. And here is the Hammond Collection Ankylosaurus figure. This figure is much larger compared to my regular Ankylosaurus figures, and it has some different coloring too. It's like a dark green along the top. It has the tan gray spikes and then the lighter underbelly as well. And check it out, you can even open and close its mouth. All right, now let's put that right next to the Triceratops figure. Now here is a really cool figure from the Amber Collection. This is a Pteranodon, and now it's actually got rubberized wings, so it's actually pretty flexible along its wings, whereas its body is still the hard plastic. So why don't we go ahead and put this right next to the Ankylosaurus figure. And now we're gonna open up our next new figure set. This is the Amber Collection Dimorphodons. So let's check it out. Now here is the first Dimorphodon. It looks like it is in a standing pose. You can see that its wings are flapped shut, so it's actually walking along the ground. And you can still open and close the mouth and move the neck around and all of its body parts still. And here is the other Dimorphodon. This one is in a open-winged flying pose. It's got some pretty cool shading along its back and along its wings, and you can pose basically every part of its body too. Now let's set these two down next in line. First the standing Dimorphodon, and then the open-winged flying Dimorphodon. Next up is the Hammond Collection Miniature Velociraptor figure. This one has some gray coloring with white striping and then some blue and red along the top of its head. So now let's go ahead and set that up next in line. And next I've got a Dimorphodon figure here. This one's actually pretty recent as well. Now this Dimorphodon figure actually has a removable frill, which unfortunately is a little difficult to take on and off, but it's still a pretty cool feature, and we're gonna put it right next to the Raptor. And to finish it off, I've got some of the miniature figures from the Hammond Collection. First off is the Ellie Sattler figure right here in the red sweater. There's also another Dennis Nedry figure from the Hammond Collection this time. There's the Alan Grant figure in his adventure outfit. And finally, another John Hammond figurine in the same costume. first unusual species is this Eocarcharia figure from the new Dino Trackers series. It's got a fantastic feathering texture over its whole body and a single lever action on its back for the chomping and roaring. Next up is the mighty Yangchuanosaurus figure. This has the green and brown coloring, and you can use the tail to control the head and open and close the jaw. Here is the Irritator dinosaur, and I think it's from the Dino Trackers series. This figure has some really cool coloring, and that same action button on its back for the chomping and roaring. Next up is this huge Quetzalcoatlus figure. If you're a big fan of the movies, you might remember this species in the Jurassic World Dominion movie. And it's got one button on its back for flapping its wings, and another button for moving its neck up and down and opening and closing its jaws. Right over here, I've got the Siamosaurus figure. This dinosaur walks on all four legs, and you can use the tail to move the head around and open and close the jaw. Next is a little bit of an older figure. This is a Concavinator figure. It's got this huge hump on its back that's red and purple, and its entire face is purple. And there's an action button on its back for a chomping action, and you can press on its spike to swing its tail back and forth. This aquatic dinosaur is called the Elasmosaurus. It's got a soft blue body, which I bet camouflages really well in the water, and it has two action buttons on its back. One swings its neck side to side, and the other moves its neck up and down. Here is the Proceratosaurus figure. This is the basic edition, so you can move its tail, its legs, and its arm, but sadly there is no action button. Still has some pretty cool coloring though. Next up is the Suchomimus figure. This version is in the yellow and brown, and it has two buttons on its back, one for chomping its jaw, and the other for swinging its tail. And I've actually got the other Suchomimus figure in here. This one is in the blue and yellow coloring. And this figure actually only has one action button, and that is for the chomping action. Check out this crazy looking figure. This is a Diabloceratops from the new Dino Trackers series. It's got the all red body, some gigantic horns on its head. It's got some sound effects, and the lever on its back for the action. Here's a slightly smaller dinosaur, but still pretty scary looking. This is the Majungasaurus dinosaur with the green, yellow, and blue coloring. And while you have to open and close its mouth manually on this figure, you can still use the tail to control the neck and the head. This next figure is from the new Dino Trackers series. This is the Orcaraptor figure. It has some feather texturing on part of its body. It also has these massive claws on its front arms. And just like all the other Dino Tracker figures, has this lever on its back for the roaring and the chomping action. Next up, I've got an Albertosaurus figure in the green and orange coloring. And with this figure, you can move the tail around to twist the neck back and forth and to chomp the jaw. This next uncommon species is a crazy looking carnivore figure. This is a Tarbosaurus. Check out that red underneath its chin and all these huge spikes running down its back. Plus, you can use the tail to twist the neck around and open and close the jaw. This next figure is also quite large. This species is called a Ceops microrarum. It has the orange coloring on the sides and underbelly, and the dark blue on top, with all these rows of spikes on its head and on its back. And of course, its special feature is that you can use the tail to twist the neck around and open and close its jaw. Check out those really cool teeth. Next up is an herbivore figure. This is a Sinoceratops figure, and this version comes in the soft green coloring with some tan detailing and dark orange. And with this Sinoceratops figure, you can use the tail to move its head around in all sorts of directions. Check it out, it's another herbivore figure. This uncommon species is called an Ouranosaurus. It has a huge spine running along the top of its back and some really cool coloring. It's got the green on its body, bright yellow, orange, and even some blue on its face. And it has this action button on its side for moving its head and sound effects. Right over here, I've got the Ankylosaurus figure. Now this one is a bit older of a figure, but it's still pretty uncommon of a species. And it has two action buttons on its back. The first moves its head up and down, and the second button activates its tail for swinging back and forth. Alright, here's another carnivore. This is a Cryolophosaurus figure, and this version is the yellow one with the brown coloring and the huge crown on the top of its head. And with this figure, although you have to open and close its mouth manually, you can still use the tail to move its neck around. This next four-legged dinosaur is called a Nigersaurus. It's got the two tones of green on its body, and since it's from the Dino Tracker series, it has this special feature button on its back used for moving its head in all sorts of directions. This next uncommon species is called a Dryptosaurus figure, also from the new Dino Tracker series. It's got more dark coloring over most of its body, and it's got spikes all over on its head, on its back, and a bunch on its tail as well. And it's got the action button on its back for chomping and sound effects. This next figure is called the Gigant Spinosaurus dinosaur. It looks kind of like a Stegosaurus because it has those frills on its back, but it also has these huge spines coming out of its shoulder too. And it is actually spring-loaded so that when you move the head back and forth, it actually swings the tail back and forth too. Next up, I've got the Piatsnitskisaurus. It's got some pretty cool blue coloring over its whole body, and also some red, some orange, and some light green. Next up is the Nothosaurus dinosaur. It's a pretty weird looking species. It's got some short legs and a really long neck and narrow snout. Here is the Shringosaurus dinosaur in the yellow and brown coloring. It walks on all four legs, and it has this massive pair of horns on the top of its head. Next up is the Austroraptor dinosaur figure. It comes in the tan and brown coloring and has a bit of dark orange along the top of its head, and it has a really long and narrow snout. Next up is a Herrerasaurus, which you might have heard before, but this is actually a pretty new figure and looks quite a bit different compared to the old version. Plus, it has an action button on its back for a chomping motion. This is the Geniodecticirrus figure. This version comes in the dark brown and yellow coloring, and it also has an action button on its back for opening and closing its jaw. Here is another aquatic dinosaur. This one is called the Tanystropheus figure. It's got some short little legs that you can adjust and a bright blue body, and when you move the tail up and down, it actually swings its neck way down to the bottom. Now here's a crazy looking dinosaur. This uncommon species is called a Scutosaurus. It's got a bright orange body and it walks on all fours, and check out these huge horns underneath its chin. I've got a few more winged dinosaurs in here. This species is called Rhamphorhynchus. It's got some bright yellow-green wings and a bunch of crazy looking teeth in its mouth. This next dinosaur species is called the Zundaripterus. It's got bright yellow wings and a brown body, and you can actually see feather texturing all over its wings too. Plus, it's got a pretty unique looking face and jaw. Next up is a Dracorex figure. This one is colored bright green with some gray striping, and check out all those horns on the back of its head. Oh, you know what? I've got another winged dinosaur in here. This one is called the Tapehara. It's got a lot of orange and some green on its body, but the coolest part is this face. Check that out. Plus, there's a button on its back to flap its wings. The next dinosaur is an Elaphrosaurus figure. It comes in the blue coloring with some yellow and dark brown detailing. And check out those huge horns on the top of its head. Here is the extreme battle damage Quilmosaurus figure. It has the light green body with the dark green on top and the bright red chin. And check out that battle damage on the side that you can click on and off. Alright, I've got another aquatic dinosaur. This one is called the Plesiosaurus. It's got a dark green body with the white underneath, also to camouflage in the ocean, and a single action button on its back to move its fins. This next uncommon figure is the Masiakasaurus dinosaur. It has the dark red body with the yellow spotting all over, and spotting is pretty unusual for these dinosaur figures, and the single action button on its back for chomping its jaw. This is the Rugops primus figure. It has some feather texturing over its body and a soft green coloring on its body with the black on its tail and on its face. Here is the Miragaia figure. This figure looks quite a bit like a Stegosaurus, but this one also has the huge spikes coming out of its shoulders and a lot more spikes on its tail too. And here is a Pachycephalosaurus figure. I believe this one is from the Legacy collection, and this figure has a special feature that when you press down on its tail, it has the headbutting action. This little dinosaur here is called a Troodon. It has the pink underbelly and gray on the sides and the black spine and the black along the top of its head too. Next up is the Protoceratops figure. There's a few versions of this, and this one is in the bright green with yellow accenting. This figure I believe is called the Sauropelta. It has some huge spikes coming out of its shoulders and is actually spring-loaded, so you can swing its shoulders back and forth with those huge spikes. Here's a crazy looking figure. This is actually a hybrid dinosaur from the first Jurassic World movie. This is a Triceratops and Stegosaurus hybrid. Check out that battle damage right on the side too. And it even has an action button. When you press down its tail, you get a stabbing action with its head. And last of all, I've got the Zuniceratops figure. This is a newer version that is in the brown coloring with the tan and black on its face, and it has a single action button for a stabbing action. Let's start with the biggest figure in this entire bin. This is the Apatosaurus figure. This figure is ginormous. It's very similar to a Brachiosaurus. It's got the long neck, but it has a totally different face and a much stockier body, I think. But the figure itself is pretty cool because you can move all the legs, you can swivel the tail back and forth, you can move the neck back and forth too, and there's a surprising amount of detail on its face. Can even open and close its mouth too. This thing is ginormous. Next up, I believe released as part of the first Jurassic World movie, is this hybrid Indominus Rex figure. It's got the bright red coloring, it's got some special features, can pop out their spines, its jaw opens and closes, and as you can hear, there's tons of sound effects too. Way over here from Jurassic World Dominion, we've got an extreme battle damaged Tyrannosaurus Rex. This figure is darker than a lot of the T-Rex figures that I have, and of course, it's got the battle damaged slashes right on its side that you can open and close to hide completely or to show. That's really cool. Here is another giant T-Rex figure. This one might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't quite remember. But this one is a dark green coloring, which I love. It's got some black striping along the top, and it's got the action button on the top of its head to activate the jaw. Over here, we've got a Tarbosaurus figure. This figure has tons of spikes running down all the way down its spine to its tail. It's got a dark gray body with some red right underneath its neck and chin, and it's got some action features as well. It can open and close the jaw and move the neck. This, I believe, is the Parasaurolophus figure. It's got some really cool pink reflective coloring, which is a pretty special feature. You can move all of its limbs, and you can use its tail to move its head up and down, and in all directions. Over here, we've got another Parasaurolophus figure, but I think that this one is from the Amber collection or the Hammond collection. I actually can't remember. But it's got some pretty cool coloring and striping along its body. This figure is very poseable. You can even bend at the elbows and at the knees and at the ankles, which you can't do with a lot of Jurassic World figures. So that's pretty cool. Next up is the purple, orange, and blue Sarcosuchus figure. This dinosaur spends a lot of its time in the water. It looks a bit like an alligator actually, and it's got some awesome spikes running along its back, and it has some action features that you can use the tail to move the head around and open and close the ginormous jaw. Here we've got an Ankylosaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It comes with sound effects as you can hear, and when you press down on its back, it actually swings its tail back and forth. This is the new Triceratops figure from the Hammond collection. It's got a whole lot more detailing along its skin, which is pretty cool. The coloring is a little bit varied along its body, but the best part is that there are many points of articulation. You can move all of its limbs in all sorts of directions, and I love the detailing on the face too. It's really cool. Here is the Sound Surge Carnotaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the all red body, and of course, the sound effects. Next up is the basic Spinosaurus figure in the dark green coloring with the red spine. You can move the legs and arms and tail, but you can't open and close the jaw on this figure. Here is the Camp Cretaceous Scorpius Rex figure. This one is a bit smaller than the other Scorpius Rex figure that I have. It's got a green body with some black detailing along the top, and you can move all of its limbs as well, even open and close the jaw. Here is a T-Rex figure from the first Jurassic World movie, and this one was actually custom painted, so you won't see this one much around, but it's got the red body with the black stripes and spots, and the yellow eyes, and an action button on its back to activate the jaw. Right here, we've got the Seats Microrarum figure. This is a pretty unique figure. I love how the teeth fit into the jaw perfectly. See that big tooth right there and how it fits in perfect? That is super cool. Plus, it's got tons of spikes along its neck and its back, and you can use the tail to control the neck and the jaw too. Way in the back here, we've got the Carcharodontosaurus figure in the tan, brown, and orange coloring. It's got some little spikes running up its head all the way to its tail, and it's got an action button on its back to activate the chomping action. Here is the Yangchuanosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. So this is a newer figure. It's got the green body with brown detailing, and you can actually move its whole body quite a bit. You can move its torso up and down, and you can use the tail to control the head too. Right here from the first Jurassic World movie is the miniature Mosasaurus figure with battle damage on the side. That is really cool. I have quite a few giant Mosasaurus figures, but this one is still really cool and decently detailed as well. Watch out, we've got another Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. This one also has the battle damage on both sides of its body that you can turn on and off. Plus, the rest of its body is very posable as well. Next up is the Cryolophosaurus figure. I think this one might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't remember. But anyways, you can move the tail to move the head up and down, and you can move all the limbs and open and close the jaw too. Here's a couple more figures from the first Jurassic World movie. So these figures are pretty old. These are both miniature Spinosaurus figures. They both have the battle damage on the side. This one is more wildly colored, and this one's a bit more realistic. Next up, I've got a giant Dilophosaurus figure in the red coloring with these super bright frills and crown in the front. That is really cool. Here is a Pachycephalosaurus figure with the green and brown coloring and the battle damage that you can open and close on the side. This figure is from Jurassic World Dominion. It is the Rajasaurus with the dark blue coloring and the white on its neck and chin as well. Plus, it's got some spikes right along the top of its neck. And with this figure, when you press down on its back, it has a chomping action. This is another Scorpius Rex figure, but this is the basic edition, so you can't open and close the jaw, but you can still move the arms, the legs, and the tail around, and it has some pretty cool coloring and detailing along its body. Looks like I've got another Cryolophosaurus figure in here. This one is bright yellow with brown and orange detailing along its head, and just like the other figure, you can open and close the mouth, and you can use the tail to swing the neck around. Oh, look at this. I've actually got another Rajasaurus figure too, also with different coloring. This one is light brown with the dark blue coloring along its back and neck. And just like the other Rajasaurus, you can press down on its back for the chomping action. This is the Albertosaurus figurine with battle damage on its side. Check it out, you can see its stomach, then you can even close the ribs, and then you can even close the skin to hide it all. That is really cool. Plus, it's got some battle damage on its leg as well, and the rest of its body is pretty adjustable too. So this is a pretty awesome figure. This, I believe, is a Sinoceratops from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. It's got a bright yellow tail with a green body, and its eyes are all black, which is really cool. With this figure, you can press down on its body for the roaring action. Next up, I've actually got some brand new figures that we're gonna open up on camera here. The first is this Funko Pop Giganotosaurus figure. So this Giganotosaurus figure comes on a clear stand. It's got some interesting coloring. It's a lot different than the Mattel Giganotosaurus figures that I have. It's got the light gray coloring on the underside, this gray-blue coloring all along the top, so it's not very green like many of the other figures. And it's got these huge yellow eyes without pupils, which is interesting. Plus, you can see a little bit of battle damage, some slashes and scrapes here and there, all along its body too. And we've also got the Dino Rivals Dual Attack Triceratops. This Triceratops is a light gray color. It's got some darker detailing along the top. And as the name says, it has two action buttons. The first is for the horn slashing or roaring action. And there's a second button for the tail whipping too. whips its tail back and forth. It's pretty cool. Here we've got a similar dinosaur. This one I believe is a Sinoceratops. It's got the green and tan coloring with the tan underbelly and a little bit of orange on its frill in the front too. And this figure has one action button on its back to activate moving the head up and down. Next up, we've got a smaller figure. I actually don't remember the species of this dinosaur, so let me know down in the comments if you recognize what type of dinosaur this is. It's got an action button on its back to move its head back and forth. I've also got a few mini figures right here, both with different coloring. This first one is a greenish color. It's got some interesting detailing along its body, and the other one is red with white spikes, which is really cool. I think this one is definitely my more favorite one. Next up is the Zuniceratops figure, pretty similar to a Triceratops. It's got those two horns in the front, but it does not have the third horn, and it's got some different coloring as well. Over here, we've got a baby T-Rex figure. It's got the light green body with some darker green detailing, and it's got an action that you can use to open and close its jaw. This is a Carnotaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's a lot smaller than most of the Carnotaurus figures, but it's got some pretty cool coloring, very different from the other Carnotaurus figures, and it's still quite posable as well. Here's an interesting looking dinosaur. I believe this one is a Shringosaurus or something like that. I can't quite remember, but the most interesting part is it's got spikes, little spikes on its shoulders and huge spikes on its tail. That's pretty cool. Right over here, I've got a battle damage Coelurus figure that you can actually turn the battle damage on and off, just like the giant T-Rexes that we saw earlier. That's pretty cool. Here is a baby Brachiosaurus figure in the light green and dark green coloring, and it is pretty adjustable as well. You can move the neck, the legs, and the mouth as well. Right over here, this, I believe, is a Stygimoloch figure, and it has an action that when you move the tail, it has the headbutting action. I've got a few Velociraptor figures in here as well. This first one is the spring-loaded version, so you can actually have it jump into the air because its legs are spring-loaded. I've also got one, I believe, from the Amber collection, so it's a lot more detailed and a lot more articulate with its limbs, so you can move its arms and its legs quite a bit more. And I've also got this third Velociraptor figure with some pretty cool blue coloring. It's pretty unique with its coloring, and it's got an action button on its back to move its claws up and down. These next figures are Herrerasaurus dinosaurs. They both look pretty identical except from the coloring. This one is a light blue-gray coloring, and this one is green with brown on the top, and this one actually has battle damage that you can open and close on the side. And for the final figures, we've got Dr. Ian Malcolm, and we've got a Dracorex figure with all these spikes on its head. Plus, you can move its neck up and down, and its arms and legs as well. Get started with the biggest T-Rex figures. This one is a custom colored super colossal T-Rex. This is one of my most brightly colored T-Rexes. This one is super cool and will be the first on the right side. Over here we've got another super colossal T-Rex. I believe this one is from Camp Cretaceous. It has the bright orange sides with the brown on top and the lighter underbelly. So let's place this on the left side over here. Going back to the right side, let's grab this super colossal Jurassic World Dominion T-Rex. This version of the super colossal T-Rex features some of the darkest coloring that any of my T-Rex figures have. And let's put this one on the right side. And for our final super colossal T-Rex is another custom colored one. This one is a light blue-gray color all over and has some bright red eyes. I think this figure actually used to be the same color as this one right here. So let's put this figure on the left side to face off. There are our super colossal figures. Now let's move on to the rest of the smaller figures. This T-Rex is the Terran T-Rex. It has a button on its back that you can use for a really cool tearing action. It swings its entire neck around and closes its mouth. And not only that, but it also has a button to swing its tail back and forth too. All right, what team should we put this one on? Let's put it on the right side team. Up next is the Hammond Collection T-Rex. This figure came out pretty recently. It features much more detailed coloring and texturing, plus you can move its body in all sorts of different directions. Now let's put this Hammond Collection T-Rex on the left team. Here is the epic Roarin' T-Rex figure from Camp Cretaceous. This figure is one of my favorite T-Rexes because of its realistic coloring, and it actually has a roar sound effects with vibration. That is battery operated, that's pretty cool. And we're gonna place this one on the right team. For the left team, we're gonna go with the smaller Jurassic World Dominion T-Rex. You can see that compared to the super colossal version, it's actually quite similar with the black on top and the dark brown on the sides and the yellow eyes, but obviously just a whole lot smaller. And we're gonna place this one actually on the left team. This T-Rex is another custom-colored Tyrannosaurus Rex figure from Jurassic World, and this one features some really cool camouflage coloring all over its body. And you can even move the tail for a jaw-snapping action and for a roaring action too. Now let's put this on the right team for the face-off. Now back to our bin, what one should we grab next? Let's go for this bright orange one. This looks to be like a battle damaged Tyrannosaurus Rex. It has some painted slashes on its neck and on its chin, as well as on its leg and its torso. And this seems to be a little bit smaller than a lot of these figures. And we're gonna go ahead and put this on the left team. Wow, look at that size difference between this one and the Hammond Collection T-Rex. For the right side, we're gonna go with this other battle damage T-Rex, but instead of painted battle damage, it actually has an activated battle damage slash right there that you can turn on and off. It's also interesting that this figure is a much darker orange than that battle damage T-Rex. And we're gonna put this one on the right team. Next up, we've got a larger T-Rex figure. This is the Stomp and Escape T-Rex. And this T-Rex figure actually came with this cage that you put on its face. And once it's on there, you can actually break free from it. That is really cool, and it's probably one of my favorite features. And we're gonna place this T-Rex on the left team. Right over here is another super brightly custom colored T-Rex figure. This T-Rex is another fiery red color, and it actually has very similar design to this super colossal T-Rex right over here. You can see all those similarities. And now we're actually gonna place them on the same team, on the right side. All right, the time has come. We are gonna check out this new custom colored T-Rex that I ordered, and I actually haven't seen it yet. You can see the tip of the tail right there, so let's go ahead and pull it out. And here it is. All right, it is another custom colored camouflage T-Rex. That is super cool. It's got the bright green on the sides and then brown and black and tan all over the rest of its body. And this one looks to be actually a battle damage T-Rex, like this bright orange one right over here. And look at that, you can actually turn the battle damage on and off still. And actually this figure seems to be pretty similar in color to this older custom colored camouflage T-Rex. Look at that, they're pretty similar. They both have a lot of the same colors. This is really cool. And instead of having them on the same team, I'm actually gonna put this one on the left team over here so they can face off against each other. Our next figure in this T-Rex versus T-Rex collection is this dark green T-Rex. And this one was actually not custom colored. This is how it came. And comparing the two colors, the custom colored green is a lot brighter than this green. And this T-Rex still has the button on the top of its head for the chomping action. Now let's put this T-Rex on the right team. Let's keep going here. Let's grab this one next. Here is another very natural colored T-Rex. Looks like it's a light gray color on the sides and dark brown on the top. I bet that this T-Rex would blend into rocks or a mountainside really well. Its body is fully posable and it has the button at the top of its head for the chomping action. And this T-Rex is gonna go over on the left team. I've got at least one more bright orange T-Rex figure. This figure is a little bit older. I think it might be from the Fallen Kingdom era. And like that super colossal figure in the back there, it has the bright orange body with the brown on top, and it features the chomping button. Let's move it on over to the right team. Here's another crazy looking custom colored T-Rex. And this figure is actually quite old. I believe it's from the first Jurassic World movie. I believe that this figure used to be a tan color, actually just like this figure right here. These two figures are basically identical, other than the coloring, of course. And they both got a button on the top of their back for a chomping action, although they don't work too well anymore. Now let's put them on opposing sides. The custom colored T-Rex is gonna go on the left team, and the original tan T-Rex is gonna go on the right team. I've actually got one more T-Rex figure from that same era. This figure is basically the exact same size, although it has different coloring, and this is actually how it came too. So it has the dark green on the body, but it has some reflective gold along the top, and then this interesting design running along its neck and its side too. But coolest of all, it actually has some hidden spikes on its back and its head, so that when you press the chomping action, its spikes spring out too. Now what side should this T-Rex go on? Let's have it go on the right team. Coming up next, we've got a smaller T-Rex figure, and this is actually a model T-Rex that wasn't made by Hasbro or Mattel. It features some brown coloring with the black stripes, and since it's a model, you can't actually move any body parts. And let's put this figure on the left team. This next figure is another model T-Rex, and it has some kind of tiger-like coloring with the orange-yellow body and then those black stripes right on top of that. Let's put this T-Rex model on the right team. Got a few more model T-Rexes in here. This one is a dark green with black striping, and on this model T-Rex, you can actually open and close its jaws. Now let's put this one on the left team right there. And here is one more model T-Rex figure. This one is also brown and black, pretty similar to this T-Rex right here, but it is quite a bit smaller, and on this figure, you can actually open and close its jaw too. Now let's have it go on the right team. Next, let's check out some Lego T-Rex figures. This first one is brown and bright orange. It features a fully posable body and a huge jaw. And this one's gonna go to the left team. Now let's grab that other Lego T-Rex figure that I have in here. This one is a lot darker brown. You can check out the color difference between the two right there. But in shape and size, they're pretty similar. Although I will point out that this one has white teeth, and the teeth on this figure are not colored at all. But nevertheless, let's set this one on the right team. And we're back to the figures made by Mattel. This is the Sound Surge Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. It's smaller than many of these other figures in here, but it has a button on the top of its back to activate the sound effects. Let's see if we have any more room for this T-Rex here. Now here's a wacky looking T-Rex figure. This is a Gujitsu Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it is actually licensed by Jurassic World, so this is an official figure. And the feature of this figure is that it's got a super squishy and super stretchy body. Check out this crazy stretching. All right, now I don't know that this figure is actually gonna stand up, but we're gonna place it on the left team here. I've also got a Funko Pop figure in here. This one is from Jurassic World Dominion, and I really like the all black eyes on this figure. Makes it look really scary. And we're gonna place this on the right team. Right here are some older figures, I believe once again from the first Jurassic World movie. This super bright one is actually a hybrid T-Rex. It is a hybrid with a Dilophosaurus, and it's got the bright neon orange and the reflective gold coloring on its body. So this one is pretty special. So let's place that on the left team right here and check out this other one that is very similar size but not a hybrid T-Rex. So this is the original version, and it's got a little bit of battle damage right on the side. And let's place this right in front of the hybrid T-Rex on the right team. And finally, I've got some tiny T-Rex figures in here. Let's check all of these out. Looks like there's a couple Snap Squad figures in here. This first Snap Squad T-Rex is in the brown orange coloring with the dark brown on the top. And let's place this on the right side. And then there's also this dark green Snap Squad T-Rex. And I think this T-Rex figure is actually pretty similar in color and design as this one way back there. Look at that, they're basically the same green color. Now let's put this one on the left side here. And for our final two, we've got this crazy looking T-Rex figure. This one's also quite a bit old, so the chomping action doesn't work anymore, sadly. But we'll go ahead and put it on the right team. And then finally, this miniature Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. It is all brown, although its eyes look to be painted black, which is a nice detail. And the underbelly is also painted a lighter tan color. And let's finally put this T-Rex on the left team. And so here is our entire versus battle. We've got the left team of T-Rexes over here versus the right team. Which side do you think would win in a battle? Let me know in the comments below. Let's start with some of these biggest dinosaurs. Here, I believe, is a custom colored T-Rex. This is the Bull T-Rex, which can actually swallow smaller dinosaurs all the way to its stomach compartment right down there. And let's compare that with the original painting of the Bull T-Rex here. This is JP28. It's got the yellow and green coloring with the black stripes on top. And of course, this one can eat smaller dinosaurs too. Up next is another T-Rex figure. This one is JP29. This figure also has the real feel skin over most of its body. The only hard plastic parts are its arms and its legs. Next up is another giant T-Rex figure. This is the red version, and this looks to be actually the old version of this new one that we'll check out right after this. It's got the real feel skin all over its body. It has some pretty cool coloring with the dark red and the black stripes and spots. And when you squeeze on its stomach, it can open and close its mouth, or at least it used to be able to. So now let's compare that with the new Jurassic Park electronic real feel Tyrannosaurus Rex. And here it is, the new version of the Jurassic Park T-Rex. Let's go ahead and take out this tag to hear the sound effects. Now this figure also has the real feel skin, although it is a little bit less rubbery than the old vintage version. But you can see that it still is pretty flexible, and of course its tail is also the real feel texture too. That's pretty cool. Those are some epic roaring sound effects. Let's dive back into the bin now. I've got some of the classic eggs that have the baby dinosaurs in it, so let's see what's in this one. Alright, this one is JP58, which I think is maybe a Velociraptor baby, or a T-Rex. I actually can't tell. Next up, I've got the Stegosaurus figure in the back here with the huge battle damage on its side. This is JP24 and also has some real feel skin too. And also an interesting feature with this figure is that you can move this spine to wiggle its tail. Here is the Utah Raptor. This raptor is quite a lot larger than many of my other Velociraptor figures. It is JP22, and it features a chomping movement when you press down on its tail. Next here is a winged dinosaur. This one is pretty old and worn. I believe it is a pteranodon. It has a spring-loaded mouth, and its wings are actually a soft fabric instead of a rubber or anything like that. And there's a button on its back so that you can flap its wings. Here's a decent sized dinosaur. This is the Pachycephalosaurus figure. This figure is wearing this backpack type thing. It's probably held some gadgets or something like that. You can see that there's a little bit of skin that you can open up right here. That's actually battle damage. And this figure's head is actually spring loaded, so it'll launch its head forwards. But unfortunately it's broken, so it doesn't work the right way anymore. Why don't we go ahead and grab another one of the new collector's items. This is the Jurassic Park 30th Anniversary Nano Scene. Let's go ahead and open it up. And here we go. This is a cool little miniature scene. You can see that there's two of the Jurassic Park cars here. Got the Jeep and then the classic car. And you can have them drive up to the Jurassic Park gates where the gates can open up. And on the other side are some Velociraptors waiting. And you can even see some T-Rex footprints too. This is pretty cool. I'm actually going to go ahead and put this up on my display shelf. All right, back to the bin. I've got a giant Triceratops figure. This one has the real feel skin as well. You can see the giant battle damage right on its shoulder right there. And just like with the T-Rex that we saw earlier, you can press its stomach to move its head. Back here, I think this is another Velociraptor figure. This is from Jurassic Park 3, and this figure has the dark brown skin with a light underbelly and some interesting red coloring along the top. Here is another real feel dinosaur. This one is a juvenile T-Rex. It is JP06. It also has the massive battle damage on its side. And this specific figure, I feel like, is a lot more squishy than even some of the other ones. Up next is a Triceratops figure. This is JP44. It has the camo green coloring with the green blue coloring along the top and a roaring action when you move its leg. This next dinosaur looks pretty similar, but I think it's actually called a Chasmoceratops. This is JP21, and I think it might even have a larger frill compared to the Triceratops. And it's even got sound effects too. Up next is an old Spinosaurus figure. This one is pretty bright. It is JP39 and is pretty small compared to a lot of the newer Spinosaurus figures. And check that out, when you move its arm, you can also open and close its mouth too. This next one I think is another Velociraptor figure. This one has striping all over its body. It is JP18, and I don't think it works too well anymore, sadly, but you can move the leg and it would move its neck up and down when it used to work. This Jurassic Park figure is the Allosaurus figure, and this one has some body parts that you can take off to reveal the battle damage underneath. You can also remove part of its chest and even the rib cage underneath, and also a part of its tail. That's pretty cool. I don't think many of the new Jurassic World figures have this much battle damage that you can reveal. Here is the Parasaurolophus figure. This is JP19, and it has a single button on its back for the running action. I've got another Jurassic Park egg here, so let's see what dinosaur is inside. All right, it is the baby Triceratops figure, and it is JP57. Look at those green marbled eyes. Why don't we go ahead and check out this other new collector's item too. This is the Hammond Collection Dr. Alan Grant and Velociraptor pack. Let's go ahead and take this off, and there they are. Here is Dr. Alan Grant. He's got the plaid shirt, and you can see that there is a camera pack in there, as well as a green backpack. So he can wear the green backpack, and inside the camera case are the two hidden Velociraptor eggs. If you remember that from Jurassic Park 3. And let's check out the Velociraptor figure from the pack. Like all the Hammond Collection figures, it is super adjustable, so you can bend all of its limbs, and it has some pretty cool coloring with the white and the brown striping all over its body. Here is the Velociraptor figure. This is JP53. This dinosaur is a pretty exotic looking one. It's got these spikes all over its head and on its back, as well as these wing-like things on its arms. This is a hybrid dinosaur, so it's a Velociraptor mixed with something else that I actually don't know. Here is the Compsognathus dinosaur. This is a super bright and wildly colored dinosaur. It's got these spines running along its back, kind of like a Stegosaurus, but it stands on two legs, and it's got this crazy thing that it shoots out of its mouth. I don't know if that's its tongue or what that is. And another crazy colored dinosaur from Jurassic Park is the Amargospinus. It's got the bright red all over its body. This is JP58, and when you move its leg, you can actually activate its spines on its back, on its neck, and you can open its mouth too. Over here, I've got two twin Baryonyx figures. They've got slightly different coloring, but they are identical in size and shape. This first one has the yellow coloring with the dark brown spots, and this second one is dark brown all over and has some bright orange stripes on its back. Here I've got another hybrid crazy looking dinosaur. This is JP48, and I actually can't remember what the specific species of this figure is. but boy is it bright and crazy looking. Here is a Dilophosaurus figure without the frills. This is JP02, so this one is a really early figure. And it's quite small, but it still has the real feel skin and some pretty interesting coloring. And up next are a few classic Velociraptor figures. This first one is the older figure. It is JP06, and it has the dark red-orange coloring and a jaw-chomping action. And this second figure is JP10. It does not have the jaw-chomping action, and it has some totally different coloring. And here I've got a juvenile T-Rex figure from Jurassic Park. This is JP42, and this baby T-Rex actually features a broken leg. So you can see right there that is actually a bendable limb. So this originally came with a bandage or something like that you put over the leg. And as an extra bonus, I've got some really old Jurassic World figures. These are some of the first figures that came out for the new Jurassic World series. This first one is a brown Velociraptor with the gray striping on top. Here's a light tan Velociraptor. This one actually has a battle damage button on its side. I guess it doesn't work anymore, sadly. And on this figure, you can use the tail to move the arms back and forth as if it's running. There's also this super old Ceratosaurus figure. It also has the battle damage button on its side. Plus, of course, when you move the tail, you can chomp its jaw. I've got two more super brightly colored dinosaurs. This first one is an Allosaurus figure with the bright yellow and bright red. It's got a little bit of battle damage on its side, and you can use the tail to move the head around and open and close its mouth. And finally is a Triceratops Stegosaurus hybrid. You can see those golden spines running along its back from the Stegosaurus, and of course, you've got these Triceratops horns in the front. Plus a whole lot more on this figure. Let's get started with the dino trackers because those are the newest figures. This first one is the Diabloceratops. It's got some crazy horns in the front and some unique dark red coloring. Plus it has an action button on its back to move its head back and forth. This is from the Gigantic Tracker series. This is the Stegosaurus. It's got some pretty bright coloring all over its body. You can see there's all sorts of little specks of different color in there as well. And it comes with this awesome Dino Tracker backpack. And it has two action buttons. One swings the tail up and down, and the other swings the tail back and forth. Next up is another gigantic tracker. This is the Sinotyrannus. It's got a dark green body with some red detailing on its tail, on its neck, and on its head. It comes with these interesting binocular light type of things, and it has two action buttons on its back. One moves its head, and the other moves its tail. Next up is the Track and Attack Endoraptor. This is one of the newest Endoraptors released. If you pull on its arms, it moves its head, and it has a button on its back to open its mouth. Check out that awesome reflective blue coloring too. Here we've got the Dryptosaurus from the Dino Trackers series. This figure is mostly darker in colors, but it does have tons of spikes along its body, and it has a dual action button on its back that you can use to move its head back and forth. This is the Kronosaurus from the Dino Trackers series. It is an aquatic dinosaur, so it's got 4 fins, and this figure also has the dual action button on its back to move its head back and forth. And next up for the Dino Trackers, we have the Austroraptor figure. So this figure is in the same family as a Velociraptor, but you can see it has a much longer and narrower snout. And on this figure, you can adjust the tail, the legs, the arms, the neck, and the mouth. All right, let's check out this new Dino Trackers set that I'm adding to my collection. This is the Search and Smash Truck set. Let's first check out this Atrociraptor. It's about the same size as some of the other mini Atrociraptor figures that I have. It's got some pretty unique coloring though. It's got some bright red-orange coloring along the front, while the rest of its body is a soft tan color with a little bit of black on the top. And this set actually comes with a tracker that you can put right on to the Atrociraptor. check that out. It's pretty cool. This set also comes with a soldier who's got a brown vest and also a weapon. And the biggest part of all is this Jeep. And it has a special feature where you can press down on the hood and it'll actually capsize. And next up from the Dino Trackers is the Allosaurus. This figure's got some soft blue coloring with some green detailing, and it's got a real mean looking face. Alright, moving on to the Roar Attack series, we've got the Baryonyx Chaos figure. This figure has some bright blue detailing along the top of its head, and a slide lever action for the sound effects and chomping action. Here is our first Allosaurus figure. This figure has the brown body with the blue detailing along the top. It's got some little spikes running down its spine, and it's got the slide lever action on its back for the roaring and sound effects. Next up from Roar Attack is this Ceratosaurus figure. It's a bit smaller than the Allosaurus figure. It's got the red and black coloring along the top, and of course the slide lever action for the chomping and the roar sound effects. This next figure is actually a Mega Destroyer figure. This is the Carcharodontosaurus. It's got an action button right on its back for the chomping. And you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail too. Here's another Mega Destroyer Carcharodontosaurus. It's pretty much the same aside from this awesome coloring. It's got the blue and the orange and brown, and of course the action button on its back for chomping. Here is the next Roar Attack Allosaurus. This one has the dark green, white, and red. You can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, and it has the slide lever button on its back to activate the sound effects. Here is another Mega Destroyer. This is the Pentaceratops, and this figure is quite large. It's got the soft brown body with the gray detailing and two action buttons. The first moves its head up and down, and the second swivels its entire torso back and forth. And these are probably some of the largest horns that I've seen. This is the Roar Attack Kentrosaurus. It's got spikes all over its body, but the coolest part are these huge spikes coming right out of the side. And you can actually swing those spikes back and forth using this slide lever action. This is the Mega Destroyer Stegosaurus figure with the camouflage green, tan, and brown coloring. And it's got the hidden action button that you can press to swing its entire torso and its tail back and forth. And those are some pretty long spikes too. This is the Ceratosaurus figure with the dark green and black coloring. It's got the tiny little horn on its head, and there's a slide lever action for the chomping and sound effects. This one's an interesting looking dinosaur. This is the Oranosaurus from Roar Attack. It's got a huge spine running along its back and a slide lever action on its side to move the head up and down. This next figure is Ankylosaurus Bumpy. It's got the huge shell on its back, the spikes coming off the side, and a slide lever action to swing its tail back and forth. And last of all, we've got Baryonyx Limbo in the green, dark green, and brown coloring. You can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, and you can use the slide lever action to open and close its mouth. First dinosaur is this massive Indominus Rex Predator from the new Dino Trackers series. It has a button on the tail to activate the sound effects and chomping. And check out that green lighting in its neck too. Next up is another massive predator. This is the Spinosaurus. And this one is actually pretty special because it is in the Battle Damage edition. And you can see the battle damage right here on the side that you can open right up and press a button to spin around. Way in the back here, this Predator is another Indominus Rex, and this one is the Extreme Battle Damage Edition. Check that out, you can turn on and off the battle damage with the sound effects, and you can press the button on its tail for the chomping action. Next up, I've got a Giganotosaurus figure. This figure is almost as large as the Indominus Rex figures, and it has a button on its back to swing the torso around, as well as chomp its jaw open and shut. Next up is the new 93 Real Feel Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. It has the all red body, and it actually has a stomach compartment, so you can feed it smaller dinosaurs. Way in the back here is a custom painted Indominus Rex. It's been changed to be camouflage green, and they added a bunch of blood around its jaw. Here is the Dino Trackers Tyrannosaurus Rex figure with the headpiece, and it has one button on its back for the chomping action. Next up is another Indominus Rex figure, but this one is actually a hybrid one from the first Jurassic World movie. It's got some hidden spikes that you can pop up, and it's even battery operated for some jaw-chomping action. This Predator is the Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. It features an extremely posable body and amazing detailing and coloring. Here is another battle damaged dinosaur. This one is the T-Rex edition, and right on its side, just like the Indominus Rex, it has the battle damage that you can turn on and off. Next up is this huge Triceratops figure. This is a whole lot larger than my other Triceratops, and it comes in the classic brown coloring. Next up is the Grab and Growl Endoraptor figure from Fallen Kingdom. It has an action button for slashing its arms and for chomping its jaw. This is the Scorpius Rex figure from Camp Cretaceous. It has a dark green body and is fairly posable. You can move the arms, the legs, and the tail and manually open and close the mouth. Here is the Pyroraptor figure from Jurassic World Dominion. This is the basic edition, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, but you can't open and close the jaw. Here is a crazy looking Dilophosaurus figure from the first Jurassic World movie. It's got neon colors all over and a bit of battle damage right on the side. This next figure is the Sound Surge Tyrannosaurus Rex figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's a lot smaller in size, and there's a button on its back for the sound effects. Now here's one massive Predator figure. This is the Allosaurus in the Battle Damage Edition. So just like the Spinosaurus we saw earlier, it has battle damage right on the side. This dinosaur, I believe, is called the Kentrosaurus. It looks a lot like a Stegosaurus, and it has these massive spikes right on its side, and there's an action button on its back to flip those spikes back and forth. Here is a Carcharodontosaurus figure in the blue, brown, and orange edition, and it has a single action button on its back for a chomping motion. Up next from the new Dino Tracker series is the Sinotyrannus figure. It's got this cool headpiece that goes all the way down to its back, and it has two action buttons, one for chomping the jaw and one for swinging the tail. Here is a Cryolophosaurus figure, I believe from Camp Cretaceous. It is in the dark blue version, and on this figure you can move the tail around to move the head with sound effects. This is another big Predator figure. This is a Carnotaurus figure. This one's a bit older. It has the bright orange and red coloring, and the button on its tail for chomping its jaw. And here is a newer Carnotaurus figure. This one is from Dino Trackers. You can see it still has very similar coloring, but this version actually has some buttons on its side for sound effects and lighting. Plus, there is a chomping action button as well. This figure is the Stegosaurus figure in the dark blue-gray coloring, and it has a single action button on its back for swinging the tail back and forth. Oh, you know what? It looks like I've actually got two versions of this same figure. So these are twin dinosaurs right here. Up next is another Endoraptor figure, I believe also from Fallen Kingdom. This figure features a fully posable body, but no action buttons. Next is an Iguanodon figure from Jurassic World Dominion, and it features an action button when you press down on its back. This brightly colored dinosaur, I believe, is called a Scutosaurus. Check out those huge horns right underneath its chin. Here's another Indominus Rex figure. This one is from the first Jurassic World movie, and it features the battle damage right on the side that you can hide and reveal. Plus, it's got an attack action when you press down on the tail. This next figure is a baby Stegosaurus figure. This one came out pretty recently. I really love the green coloring on this. And I've got another baby dinosaur in here. This one is the juvenile Nasutoceratops figure. And for the final figure in this first bin is a mini figure in the bright green coloring with spikes all over its back. Now it's time for the second bin, but before we do, let's check out this brand new Camp Cretaceous figure, the Gallimimus from the Fierce Force series. So it's a pretty small figure, probably around the same size as my other Gallimimus figures. Got some pretty cool camo coloring with the green on the sides and the brown on the top, and it looks like there's a single action button for moving its head up and down. Now let's check out this massive predator, the Mosasaurus. This is obviously an aquatic dinosaur, and it is a super long figure. Over here I've got another Spinosaurus figure. This is the Legacy Collection version, so it has the dark green coloring with the red spine, and of course the jaw-chomping button on the top of its head. Here's another predator, and this figure's pretty old, once again from the first Jurassic World movie. This is another Indominus Rex, and this figure has some real feel skin, so its head and its neck are a soft rubber, and there's an action that when you press down on its arm, it actually opens up its mouth. Next up is another battle damage T-Rex, but this one does not have the battle damage right here on the side. Instead, it has it painted on its neck, on its chin, and other parts of its body as well. And here's another Carnotaurus figure, but this is the Sound Surge edition, so it's a whole lot smaller, and it has a single button on its back for the sound effects. Check out this new Endoraptor figure from the Dino Tracker series. It has a chomping action when you move its arms, and another chomping action when you press down on its back. This figure is from Camp Cretaceous, I believe. This is the Scorpius Rex figure. It has the yellow underbelly and the black sides, and it's got two action buttons, one to operate its jaw, and another to operate its arms. Here is the new Legacy Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. I bought this one quite recently. It's got some really cool green coloring with the gray and yellow on top, and the button on top of its head for chomping. Next up is the Hammond Collection Metriacanthosaurus figure. It's got some really cool coloring and some orange on its nose, and like all Hammond Collection figures, features a fully posable body. This predator figure is an Atrociraptor from Jurassic World Dominion. It is the basic series, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, but you can't open or close its mouth. Check it out, here's another Mosasaurus figure, but this one's a whole lot smaller, and it's from the first movie. It's even got some battle damage right there on the side that you can open and close. And this gigantic figure is the Stegosaurus from the Dino Tracker series. It has this huge backpack and two action buttons. The first swings its tail up and down, and the second on the other side swings its tail side to side. Next up, this crazy looking predator is called the Ichthyovenator. It's got some bright green coloring on its body and a single attack action for chomping its jaw. Here is a Ceratosaurus figure in the dark green and black coloring, and it's got an action button on its back for jaw chomping. And here's another Ceratosaurus figure. This one's a bit older. I think it might be from the Fallen Kingdom collection. It's got totally different coloring and a single button on its back for jaw chomping. This figure is an Allosaurus figure. It's got the bright blue, dark blue, and tan coloring, and two action buttons on its back, one for chomping the jaw and one for moving its arms. This figure is the Ankylosaurus figure in the clay red, brown, and tan coloring. And it has a single attack feature. When you press down on its body, it swings its tail back and forth. Here is the Albertosaurus figure in the green coloring with the battle damage on the side that you can open and close. This big figure is the Therizinosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. It features a tail that can move the torso around and a button for jaw chomping. Here is the Metriacanthosaurus figure in the yellow and green coloring, and it has a single action button on its back for chomping its jaw. I've got a Velociraptor figure here. This is from the first Jurassic World movie, so you can actually only move its arms and its legs. Its mouth is stuck open. Here is the Hammond Collection Triceratops figure. It's in the classic brown coloring, and just like the other Hammond Collection figures, is super posable and quite detailed. Here is another Scorpius Rex figure. This is the basic edition, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, but you can't open and close the jaw, and it's quite a narrow dinosaur. Look how thin that is. Here is the Dryptosaurus figure from the Dino Tracker series, and it features an attack button on its back for chomping. I've got another Allosaurus figure in here with the tan and blue coloring, and the single action button on its back for the chomping and sound effects. Up next is a smaller Carnotaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It features the dark green and orange coloring, and you can tell it's missing a horn, just like in the movie. This figure is the Ceratosaurus figure from Camp Cretaceous, and it's got the action button on its back for the roaring and sound effects. From the Dino Tracker series is this new Diabloceratops figure in the bright red coloring, and it has the action button on its back for sound effects and moving its head. Here's a similar looking dinosaur. This is a Triceratops figure in the green and brown coloring, and it's got two actions on its back. One for moving its head, and the other for moving its tail. Here is the Eocarcharia figure from the Dino Tracker series. It's got feather texturing all over its body, and a single action button on its back for the sound effects. Next up is a Baryonyx figure in the bright green coloring, and it has that same action button on its back for the chomping action. This crazy looking dinosaur is called the Irritator. It's got tons of different colors on its body, and the action button on its back to move its head around with sound effects. And here is yet another Indoraptor figure. This one is the basic edition, so you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, and it still has that really awesome coloring. This is the Hammond Collection Concavinator figure with the blue, the bright orange, and a little bit of brown coloring. Also from the Hammond Collection is this Irritator figure. It is in the gray and yellow coloring, and it has some really awesome detailing all over its whole body. And I've got another Triceratops figure. This one is from Jurassic World Dominion, and when you press down on its back, you get a roaring action. This is the Baryonyx Grim figure with the tan, bright green, and dark green coloring. And with this figure, you can use the tail to control the head. Here's another Hammond Collection figure. This one is the Ankylosaurus figure. So it is super posable just like the others, and is quite a bit larger compared to my other Ankylosaurus figures. Next up, this crazy looking dinosaur is called the Sarcosuchus. And with this figure, you can use the tail to control the head and chomp the jaw. Next, from the Amber Collection, this predator is the Velociraptor. It comes in the brown with darker brown striping and is super posable. Here is the Sound Surge Giganotosaurus figure. It's a whole lot smaller compared to the Giganotosaurus that I showed you earlier, and let's check out those sound effects. This is a basic Velociraptor figure in the orange coloring. And check out those bright yellow eyes. Next up is a pretty wild looking figure. This is a Dilophosaurus figure. And when you press down on the tail, you get a chomping action. And here we've got another Dilophosaurus figure, but this one actually has the frills that you can pull out to the front. Here is another Velociraptor figure from the first Jurassic World movie. So you can adjust its legs and its arms, but you can't control its mouth or its tail. And here's our first winged dinosaur of this collection. This is a gigantic Pteranodon figure in the red and blue coloring. Next up is this Allosaurus figure in the dark green, white, and red coloring, and it has the action button on its back for the chomping and sound effects. This figure is the Regaloceratops from the new Dino Tracker series. It's got a bright yellow body and an action button on its back for moving its head with sound effects. Here is a Pyroraptor figure from the Gujitsu series. This figure is super stretchy, and if you look close inside, you can see that there's actually feathers inside of the goo. This is a hybrid T-Rex Dilophosaurus figure from the first Jurassic World movie. It's super bright with this orange and the shiny gold on top, and it's even got some battle damage on the side. Also from the first Jurassic World movie is this miniature Spinosaurus figure. It also has the battle damage on the side, and you can control the head by moving the tail. Here is a smaller Velociraptor figure in the yellow and brown coloring. And check it out, it's got the battle damage right on the side that you can open and close. Here is a Herrerasaurus figure in the green and brown coloring. And check that out, it also has the battle damage right there on the side. Look at this, I've got the Velociraptor Beta figure, and it even has a little dial on its back so that you can open and close its mouth. Here is an Allosaurus figure from the first Jurassic World movie. It's got the bright yellow and red on its body, and you can use the tail to control the head. I've got another winged dinosaur here. This one is a Dimorphodon figure in the bright red with some orange and yellow on its wings. Here's another Dilophosaurus figure. This one is mostly purple, but it has tons of yellow, orange, and red on its frills. And check this out, here's a bunch more Velociraptor figures. This first one is green and brown, and it has some green specks on its side, which is pretty cool. Here is a miniature Hammond Collection Velociraptor, so this figure is super posable. There's also this classic brown Velociraptor figure with the reflective green eyes. And then I've got two Velociraptor blue figures in here. This first one is a classic one without any special features, but this one right here is actually spring-loaded in the legs, so it'll actually jump up into the air when you press down on it. Oh, looks like I missed a few other raptor figures. I've got a sneaking green Velociraptor figure here, and I've got a white with brown stripes Atrociraptor figure. Here is a Monolothosaurus from Camp Cretaceous in the dark green yellow, and red coloring. There's this Stygimoloch figure in the red-orange coloring with the striping on the sides, and with an attack that when you press down on its tail, it activates the headbutting action. Here is another Gallimimus figure, but this one is in a tan coloring and it has some striping along the top. Next, there's this smaller dinosaur that I actually can't remember the name of this species, but it has some pretty cool red and blue coloring. Next is another winged dinosaur. This is another Pteranodon figure. It's mostly gray, but it looks like it has some purple detailing on its face and on its feet, and there's a single action button on its back for flapping the wings. And there's this weird looking little dinosaur. I think it might be an Atrociraptor. You can actually turn it on so it's battery operated, and then it'll move around. And it's got some sound effects too. Next up in this collection are a few Snap Squad figures. I believe this first one here is a T-Rex figure. I've also got the Dilophosaurus figure in this collection. And then finally, an older Carnotaurus figure. And for the final four, I've got a bunch of super miniature figures. I've got Velociraptor Blue in the super tiny figure. There's also this Endoraptor figure in the crawling pose. And here is a Stegosaurus figure with the brown and green coloring. And finally, but certainly not least, a miniature Mosasaurus figure. Let's check out the first theropod. This is the 93 real field T-Rex figure that came out really recently. It's got the rubbery skin and the stomach compartment so you can actually feed this T-Rex smaller dinosaurs. Our first sauropod, I believe, is a Brachiosaurus figure. This figure comes in the dark green. It has some red detailing along the top and the lighter underbelly, and of course the super long neck with the smaller head in the front. Our next theropod is the Camp Cretaceous Epic Roarin' T-Rex. It comes in the light brown coloring with the darker brown along the top and the tail that controls the head and the chomping. Our next sauropod, I believe, is another Brachiosaurus. This one has much more interesting detailing along its body. You can see all the different muscles and the bones as well. And it comes in this darker green coloring. There's also some darker detailing throughout. And at the top of its head, it's got some dark orange eyes. Our next theropod is this special Spinosaurus figure. This figure is from Jurassic World, but it actually has custom coloring over its entire body, so you won't see this coloring anywhere else. Plus, it's got the button on its head for the chomping action too. For the next sauropod is the Nigersaurus figure from Jurassic World. This one is part of the new Dino Tracker series. It has two tones of green, the bright green in the front and the darker green in the back, and a slide lever action on its back for the sound effects and movement. This next theropod is another T-Rex. This one's pretty special because it comes in a dark green coloring with the black accenting on top, which is pretty unusual for the Jurassic World figures. And its entire body is posable, and of course you can chomp the jaw with the button at the top of its head. Next up is a strange looking sauropod. I'm actually not sure what type of sauropod this is, so let me know in the comments if you recognize the species. But it has some amazing coloring with the green, purple, blue, red, and these interesting spikes along its neck. Now let's check out this one that I just bought, and let's see what it is. Alright, this is a theropod, and it is the Battle Damage Spinosaurus. This one was actually really hard to find, so let's open it up and check it out. I am super excited to finally have this to add to my collection. This is the first blue and yellow Spinosaurus figure that I have. In terms of its shape and its size, it's pretty similar to the Legacy collection and the Camp Cretaceous version. But for the best part, let's check out the battle damage right here on the side. That is so cool. That is ginormous. And then you can also even open up its ribs to reveal what's underneath right here. And there's a hidden button right here on its spine that make its insides spin. Now that is pretty awesome. Let's do another theropod. This is a custom colored T-Rex figure. This one's pretty special because it looks like a fire T-Rex. And I think it definitely looks scarier than most of the other T-Rex figures. This next sauropod figure is an Ankylosaurus, and this one was for Jurassic World Dominion. It's got a bunch of interesting little spikes all over its body, and you can use the tail to move the head around and open and close its mouth. This theropod is called the Suchomimus figure. This version is in the dark blue with the yellow accenting and one action button on its back to chomp the jaw. This other theropod figure is the Therizinosaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's a pretty big figure and it has feathered texturing all over its body, and the best part are these huge claws on its hands. This next figure here might be a Diplodocus figure, I'm actually not sure, but it has some cool coloring, the brown stripes on the back, the gray on the sides, tan underbelly, and it has some pretty decent detailing too. They even colored in the eyes. This theropod figure is the Jurassic World Carcharodontosaurus. This version of this dinosaur has the tan body with the brown and orange accenting along the top, and all these little spikes running along its back, and a single action button for chomping. Now here's a pretty special one. This is the Lego edition Brachiosaurus figure. I think these figures are pretty rare and hard to find nowadays, so I'm pretty happy to have one in my collection. This theropod is the Seats Microrarum figure from Jurassic World. It's colored in the orange, the tan, and the dark blue. It's got a ton of rows of spikes running along its head and its back. And it has the action that when you move its tail, it also moves its head and controls its jaw. This sauropod is called the Amargosaurus. It has the dark brown coloring with the darker accenting and a little bit of red along its spines. And check out, there's actually 2 rows of spines along its neck that form into one spine running down its body. And this figure has 2 action buttons. The first button moves its head up and down, and the second action swings its tail back and forth. This theropod is the Allosaurus figure. This version is in the dark green and it has the white and red accenting. It's got a short row of spines right on the top of its neck. And this figure has the slide lever action for a bunch of sound effects and roar poses. This next sauropod kind of looks like a Brachiosaurus figure to me, and I think this is the only one that I have that is red colored. And sadly, you can't move any of its limbs or its tail or anything like that, but I do appreciate the detail and texturing along its body. This sauropod is another Allosaurus figure, but this one is in the gray with the yellow accenting. It also has posable arms and legs and a single action button on its back for chomping. Here's the second Suchomimus figure of this sauropod versus theropod collection. This second version has the bright yellow body with the brown accenting along the top, and this Suchomimus features 2 action buttons, one for chomping and the other for swinging its tail. Man, do I have a lot of Brachiosaurus figures. This one is also a Brachiosaurus. It's got some interesting orange spotting all over its body, and is quite a bit smaller than many of the other figures so far. This next theropod is another T-Rex figure. This one is from the first Jurassic World movie, and it's actually a pretty special one. It's got some interesting coloring, patterning along its side, and it actually has hidden spikes that pop out when you press a button. Over here, I've got an Irritator figure from Jurassic World. This is an older version that features the brown sides with the 2 tones of blue along its spine. And this feature comes with sound effects and a tail that controls the head. I've also got some Baryonyx figures in here, like this dark green one with the brown coloring along the top, and the single action button on its back for chomping. This next figure is a basic Velociraptor figure from Jurassic World. This one is actually Velociraptor Blue. And since it's a basic figure, you can only move the arms and the legs and the tail, but there's no action button. Up next is my first baby Brachiosaurus figure. This one is in the gray with purple coloring along the top. And even though it's so small, you can still open and close the mouth. This giant figure in here is my Camp Cretaceous Spinosaurus figure. Compared to the battle damaged version that we saw earlier, this one has the tan body with the brown along the top, and then the red spine and the red face. This next theropod is a Monolophosaurus figure, and is a pretty small figure, but it has the dark blue coloring with the I think that's kind of a brown accenting along the top of its body. And with this figure too, you can open and close its mouth as well as move its arms and its legs and twist the tail too. Here's my next baby Brachiosaurus figure. This one is a bit more recent and it comes in the brown coloring with a little bit of tan accenting along the side. The next theropod is actually a Pyroraptor, which is very similar to a raptor, but you can see that it has feather texturing all over its body here, and it has these really cool accent feathers right behind its head too. And here is my third juvenile Brachiosaurus figure. This one is the light green version with the dark green along the top, and of course the fully posable arms, tail, neck, and mouth. And here's the final theropod. This is an Atrociraptor figure. This version is the bright orange with the tan accenting along its body. Finally, we have these two huge sauropod figures. This first one on the right is a giant Brachiosaurus figure. It's much larger than this one over here. And this Brachiosaurus is actually an older version. There is a Jurassic World Dominion figure that's come out more recently. And this figure here is the Apatosaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's smaller compared to the Brachiosaurus, but still a giant compared to many of the other figures.
Want to see more dino videos? Click the subscribe button now.